President Yoon Suk-yeol will hold a trilateral summit with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts at the upcoming G7 summit. His meetings with the leaders of Canada, Germany, and the EU also scheduled this week. South Korea's electricity rates will go up by about 1 cent per kilowatt hour to offset mounting losses by state utility companies. How much more do you have to pay? Türkiye awaits its presidential election results as it is likely heading to a runoff between President Erdogan and his rival Kılıçdaroğlu. Good afternoon. After marking his first year in office last week, President Yoon Suk-yeol heads into a full week of summits this week. The G7 meeting and trilateral talks with the U.S. and Japan are key engagements on his calendar. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol will hold a trilateral meeting with his Japanese and U.S. counterparts this weekend on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Hiroshima. Yoon's office has confirmed that the president will head to Hiroshima on Friday and attend an expanded session of G7 member countries, plus 8 guest nations including South Korea. He will share South Korea's position on the key topics of food security, energy supplies amid the Ukraine war, climate change, and ways to bridge the gap between the G7 and the global South. Invited by Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Yoon's attendance marks a further step to improve bilateral ties, as the two neighbouring countries aim to end their trade and diplomatic disputes that worsened in 2019. During Yoon's 3-day visit, the two leaders will make an unprecedented joint visit to a memorial honouring Korean victims of the atomic bomb that devastated Hiroshima in 1945. To boost joint efforts with the US to address North Korea's nuclear threat and cooperate on strategic areas, Yoon and Kishida will also meet with Joe Biden. While there won't be a joint declaration, the three-way summit will be a meaningful follow-up to their previous dialogue in Cambodia last November, according to Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho.
Building on President Yoon's U.S. state visit to mark the 70th year of the South Korea-U.S. alliance and the resumption of shuttle diplomacy between Korea and Japan, we will further map out our role and contribution in multilateral diplomacy, such as at the G7 in Hiroshima.
Kim says Yoon is likely to hold bilateral meetings with other world leaders while he's in Hiroshima as part of his week-long streak of diplomacy that begins before he heads to the G7 meeting. This Wednesday, President Yoon will hold a bilateral meeting in Seoul with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau upon the 60th anniversary of South Korea-Canada relations. The summit will be followed by a joint press conference and an official banquet. Another key bilateral is scheduled for Sunday. As soon as Yoon returns from Hiroshima, he will meet with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who also heads to Seoul after the G7 meeting. The next day, Yoon will sit down with European Council President Charles Michel and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to discuss how to further their 60 years of bilateral relations, focusing on digital partnership and the green transition.
As Yoon begins his second year in office, Kim Tae-ho said Seoul will focus on maximising South Korea's security and economic interests and pursue pragmatic diplomacy while strengthening global solidarity on the principle of freedom. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea has decided to raise its electricity and gas rates by 5.3% amid financial difficulties at state utility companies. What does this mean for your family's gas and electricity bills? Our political correspondent Han Sung-woo explains.
Starting Tuesday, South Korea's electricity rates will go up by 8 won, or about 1 cent, per kilowatt hour. It's estimated to cost a 4-member household around 3,000 won, or $2.20 more on average per month. Gas bills for cooking and heating will rise as well, by 1.04 won per megajoule. That will cost a 4-member household about 4,400 won, or $3.30 more each month. Both rates are increasing by 5.3% from current levels. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, which had discussions with the ruling People Power Party earlier on Monday morning, said that the hike was inevitable.
An extra hike is unavoidable if we are to procure a sustainable supply of energy and normalize management at the Korea Electric Power Corporation and the Korea Gas Corporation.
The hikes for the April to June period come amid high global energy costs and mounting losses for the state utility companies. In the first quarter of 2023, the government had increased the electricity rates by 13.11 per kilowatt hour, but had frozen gas prices to keep heating bills down during the winter. Meanwhile, to ease the burden of higher bills on energy-vulnerable households, the government and the People Power Party have agreed to implement a set of support measures. Those include exemptions from the rate hikes for a year for socially vulnerable households falling within the low-income bracket, as well as an expansion of energy vouchers and an expansion of the so-called energy cashback policy that gives rate discounts to households that save electricity. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
On the economic front, the nation's exports continue to struggle amid the global economic slowdown, with its key chip sector among the hardest hit. Our Moon Hye-ryun has the details.
South Korea's ICT industry recorded a trade surplus of $2.33 billion despite exports falling across all major sectors and trading partners. According to data released on Monday by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the total value of tech exports in April came to around $12.8 billion, nearly 36% lower than the same month last year. The ministry attributed this to April last year recording the highest value of ICT exports for the month of April, while the ICT industry this year has seen lower demand due to the downturn of the global economy. By sector, there was a 40.5% decline on year in the total export value of semiconductors, marking the 9th consecutive month in which chip exports have fallen on year. The continued decline comes on the back of falling prices for memory chips such as DRAM, which have seen price drops for 10 months in a row due to lack of demand. Exports for displays such as OLED screens used in phones fell by 30.5% on year, and exports of mobile phones, computers and telecommunication devices also fell on year. By country, China is the destination for 40% of South Korea's ICT exports, but this year tech exports to China have fallen by nearly 40% on year. There's been a steady decline in tech exports to China on year since June last year. Outbound shipments to the United States also fell by more than 40%, while exports to Vietnam, the European Union and Japan also dropped by more than 25% on year. South Korea's ICT trade balance has generally recorded a surplus, but ICT imports have been rising over the past few years. April saw a more than 22% on-year rise in imports from India, but there was a sharp decline in imports from the United Arab Emirates. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
A magnitude 4.5 earthquake hit the country's east coast near Donghae City this morning. The Korean Meteorological Administration at 6:27 a.m. on Monday detected the quake some 59 kilometers northeast of Donghae City in Gangwon-do province. This is the biggest earthquake to hit the Korean peninsula or surrounding coastal areas this year. According to the local fire station, as of 7 a.m., 18 reports of tremors were registered from Donghae City and the surrounding cities of Samcheok and Gangneung. Since April 23rd, the region has seen a cluster of minor earthquakes and tremors, a phenomenon known as earthquake swarm. Now turning over to the high-stakes election in Türkiye, which will decide whether President Erdogan maintains power in the country. Votes are still being counted as we come on air, and the election is likely heading to a runoff between Erdogan and his rival Kılıçdaroğlu. Let's bring in our Ishi, who's been following the latest developments. She, what's the latest?
It's a fierce fight indeed, Kyung-eun. It doesn't seem like either of the two candidates will secure the 50% of votes required to win the election. According to the head of Türkiye's Supreme Election Council early Monday, with 91.93% of the votes counted so far, polls show that Erdogan is leading with 49.49% of the vote, while the rival candidate, Kılıçdaroğlu, received 44.79%. The third candidate, Sinan Ogan, received 5.29% of votes, but according to the latest preliminary election results by the state-run Anadolu news agency, some 97.95% of the votes have been counted, with Erdogan receiving 49.34% of votes and Kılıçdaroğlu receiving 44.99%. If neither candidate can secure more than half the votes, there will be a runoff between the top two contenders 2 weeks from now on, May 28th.
Right, the race poses the biggest challenge yet to Turkey's strongman leader Erdogan. She will please give some background.
Yes, Kyung-eun, this is the first time that Türkiye's factious opposition has coalesced around a single candidate to face off against Erdogan. Kılıçdaroğlu, an economist and a politician, represents an election coalition of 6 opposition parties. Erdogan is the 12th and current president of Türkiye since 2014, and prior to that, he served as prime minister from 2003 to 2014. Now, these elections come at a critical time, less than 3 months after a vicious earthquake in February killed more than 50,000 people in southern Türkiye and northern Syria. Erdogan has been criticized for botched rescue efforts and lax building controls that his ruling Justice and Development Party presided over for 2 decades. This also comes amid a serious economic crisis where over the last 2 years, the country's currency has plummeted and prices have ballooned. It's expected that if elected, Erdogan will continue to refrain from imposing sanctions on Russia and maintain a friendly relationship with the country. On the other hand, Kılıçdaroğlu is expected to work on restoring relationships with NATO and the European Union and focus efforts on recovering the economy. That's all I have for now, and I'll be back with more updates in a later newscast. Back to you, Kyung-eun.
All right, our Shifu for us. Thank you. Now, over in Ukraine, Kyiv says it recaptured ground in Bakhmut, the fiercely contested eastern city where neither Ukraine or Russia is in full control. Russia denies the claim, saying all attacks by Ukraine have been repelled. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Ukraine says it has made significant advances in the eastern city of Bakhmut, with Kyiv's defense minister claiming that its troops had captured about 10 enemy positions in northern and southern regions of the city. Ukraine has also claimed that it had advanced some 2 kilometers in the past week, signaling a huge momentum shift in Bakhmut. However, the Kremlin denies this, saying that while Ukraine did attempt large-scale attacks from the south and north of Bakhmut over the past 24 hours, Russian forces were able to defend their territory. The Russian Defense Ministry also stressed that Russian troops changed their position for strategic reasons, a move it claims is being falsely reported as fleeing and not regrouping. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky made a surprise visit to Paris on Sunday to hold talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. His visit to the French capital was an extension of his multi-stop European tour to request fresh pledges of military support as Kyiv continues to prepare for its counteroffensives against the Russian forces. The French presidential office noted that the 2 leaders discussed Ukraine's military and humanitarian needs and the more long-term perspectives for a return to peace in Europe. It added that Macron will reaffirm France and Europe's unwavering support of Kyiv. Zelensky's trip to Paris came after he paid a visit to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz earlier Sunday, where the 2 leaders discussed Ukraine's planned counteroffensives against Russia. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In the past year, South Korea has seen a new cultural landmark open to the public in central Seoul, the former presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae, or the Blue House. Marking 1 year of its opening, our Song Yoo-jin sheds light on the significance of the site.
It's been a year since the Blue House opened its doors to the public. The former presidential office is now a cultural landmark. Cheong Wa Dae had a long history before serving Korean presidents, stretching all the way back to the 12th century and the Goryeo dynasty.
The Cheong Wa Dae area was part of Namgyong, one of the 3 administrative districts of Goryeo. It became the back garden of Gyeongbokgung Palace during the Joseon Dynasty. During the Japanese colonial period, it was where the Japanese Government General of Korea was located.
Since the establishment of the Korean government in 1948, 12 presidents from Lee Seung-man to Moon Jae-in have called Cheong Wa Dae their home and office. Before opening to the public on May 10, 2022, the area was closed off for security reasons, offering tours from time to time.
So a year has passed since Cheong Wa Dae first opened to the public, and as you can see, this area is still bustling with a lot of visitors here to take a look into the former presidential office.
I came here when I was in high school, but back then I couldn't go inside the buildings. Now I can really feel that Cheong Wa Dae has returned to the public.
The building itself represents a whole authority, and it represents also something, I think, much bigger than just Seoul. Since it was the presidential palace for many presidents to come, and I think that's why it's a must-seen place.
More than 3.4 million people have visited so far, more than 1 million the number of visitors last year to the 4 main royal palaces in Seoul combined. The Culture Ministry now aims to make Cheong Wa Dae one of the country's most prominent landmarks. One expert advises integrating history with the latest trends.
Instead of simply showcasing Cheong Wa Dae's history, we should create trendy cultural content and tour programs. Cheong Wa Dae could be the center of a new tourism cluster, as it's located near popular tourist spots like the National Folk Museum, Bukchon Hanok Village, and Gyeongbokgung Palace.
Cheong Wa Dae has exciting plans for the remainder of the year, including exhibitions, tour programs, outdoor music concerts, and a festival for artists with disabilities. 송유진, Arirang News.
South Korea's southern county of Hadong offers some of the finest quality tea in the world. And for the next few weeks, the county will be offering a special chance to experience the taste, culture, and history of its tea. Our Choi Soo-hyung fastest report from Hadong.
The aroma of fresh tea washes over visitors at the 2023 World Tea Expo Hadong. The expo is running until June 3rd at Hadong World Tea Museum in Hadong-gun County in Gyeongsang-namdo Province. This year's Tea Expo, which was postponed for last year due to COVID-19, is organized around several experience zones. Visitors can taste a variety of teas at the spacious plaza in front of the World Tea Museum. Hadong tea is especially famous for woojeon, the highest grade tea made from the youngest leaves harvested in early April. It's a great opportunity to wash away your tiredness with a smooth and fragrant cup of tea. The Global Tea Experience Zone is also not to be missed. Visitors can enjoy the tea etiquette of various countries, including Korea's traditional tea ceremony.
As well as experiencing this Korean tea culture, visitors to the expo also have the chance to compare it to tea culture from Japan, China, Türkiye, and England.
Visitors can compare differences among East Asia's tea cultures, such as how in Japan, green tea leaves are ground up as matcha powder and make soft bubbles that are easy to drink.
I came to the tea expo because I have always been interested in tea culture. It's a chance for me to experience various countries' tea culture so I can broaden my knowledge.
In Türkiye, they produce the tea from the same type of tea tree as in Hadong, but the way it is cultivated is different because they usually remove the tea leaves with scissors, not their hands. And they drink tea with lemon and lumps of sugar. You can also directly experience how Hadong tea is produced. The traditional method, which has been passed down for over 1,000 years, involves hand-mixing tea leaves from a heated large pot.
I tried this tea-making experience last year and this year, but unlike last year, it was new this time, so it was fun, but a little scary because it was hot. Anyways, I still enjoyed it.
Hadong World Tea Expo is hoping to welcome more visitors from all over the world. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News, Hadong.
Seoul has won the 2023 International Forum Design Award. South Korea's capital took the top prize at the German design competition for the second year in a row for its unique Seoul Drum modular public furniture system. The award-winning installation is part of the city's fund design project for public areas. The water droplet-shaped seating system consists of 5 modules and is currently on display in Songnyeon Square in central Seoul. And next month, the seating will be installed at parks along the Hangang River. In 2022, the city won the same award for the Cloud public shade canopies.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. We begin with the deadly tropical cyclone Mocha, which hit the coastlines of Myanmar and Bangladesh over the weekend. Myanmar's west coast was the worst hit. The Category 5 cyclone hit the Bay of Bengal on Sunday, leaving 5 people dead in Myanmar. Cyclone Mocha brought with it wind speeds of up to 200 kilometers per hour. It took out power lines, brought down a communications tower, and blew off roofs. It has also caused landslides and floods. Authorities in both countries managed to evacuate about 400,000 people from at-risk low-lying areas before the storm arrived. The storm also destroyed over 1,300 bamboo shelters in the city of Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, the site of the world's largest refugee camp. This comes 2 months after a fire there left 12,000 Rohingya refugees without shelter. The storm is set to reduce in strength over northern Myanmar from Monday night. Turning our attention to Thailand. The general elections there on Sunday saw opposition parties surge ahead in the polls. Results show the Move Forward and Pheu Thai parties are well ahead of incumbent Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's United Thai Nation Party. The retired army general came to power in a military coup in 2014. Up for grabs in this election were 500 seats in Thailand's lower house of parliament. And with most of the votes counted, Move Forward is leading, followed by Pheu Thai. Although parties are expected to discuss a coalition, a majority coalition might still not be able to govern. This is because the next government and prime minister is chosen by a 250-seat Senate, all of whom were appointed by military coup leaders. Now, Sweden's Loreen has been crowned the winner of Eurovision 2023. The 39-year-old beat out competition from 25 other countries with her song Tattoo in the final of the contest in Liverpool on Saturday. It was Loreen's second time winning the contest, having first taken the title in 2012 with the song Euphoria. She is only the second person to have won Eurovision twice and becomes the first woman to do so. The win means that Sweden will host next year's Eurovision. Second place was taken by Finland's Käärijä with Cha Cha Cha, followed by Noah Kirel from Israel with Unicorn. The 67th edition of the competition was moved to the UK from Ukraine due to the ongoing conflict there. And finally, a man from Florida has broken the record for the longest time spent living underwater without depressurization. Joseph Dittery, who also goes by Dr. Deep Sea, set the new best of 74 days on Sunday in an undersea lodge located 9 meters below the surface in Key Largo in Florida. The lodge does not use technology to adjust for increased underwater pressure, unlike a submarine. Dittery's accomplishment beats the previous record of 73 days, 2 hours and 34 minutes, set in 2014 at the same location. But Dr. Deepsea is not done yet. He plans to stay until June 9th, which will see him reach 100 days as part of a research project dubbed Project Neptune 100. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. As soon as we get into mid-May, it really feels more like summer. Today is Teacher's Day in Korea, and cool temperatures in the early morning hours have soared close to nearly 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon in most areas. We also need to be cautious in the sun during the day. Full sunshine nationwide should boost UV rays to high to very high levels after lunch, and ozone levels will be high as well. So let's try to walk, bike, carpool, or use public transportation to reduce ozone levels. Meanwhile, air quality will be bad all day in Ulsan. T-shirt and shorts weather this afternoon with highs easily surpassing 25 degrees Celsius, going a couple of degrees higher than Sunday afternoon. Now, summer-like heat is sticking around through tomorrow with an expected high of 30 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. Well, rain is in the forecast for Jeju at the end of the week, but the mainland stays mostly sunny throughout the week. Now, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.